Hello students, you are welcome to today's lesson on EDU754 Integrated Science Methods. I am Dr. Morilia Tafolabi from Faculty of Education, Science Education Department. I will be taking you today on historical development of integrated science curriculum and reforms in Nigeria. Please sit back and enjoy today's lesson. Thank you.
Let us start the lesson. In the last lesson, we discussed how to walk through the course materials and nature of science. In today's lesson, we are going to be discussing science education curriculum reform in Nigeria, the primary science curriculum projects, and the secondary school science curriculum reform embarked upon in Nigeria. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to advance reasons for a reform in science curriculum, list some primary and secondary school science curriculum projects, list financiers of each project, mention dates when each project is initiated, mention the focus of each of the projects, and list the curriculum materials produced for the execution of the project. Let me tell you a short story about how science education reform was initiated. There was history of this Sputnik 1 from Russia. Sputnik 1 was the first orbiting satellite. It started the space race. It was launched on October 4, 1957. It took 98 minutes to orbit Earth. It was launched by the Soviet Union. But the main story is that the Soviet Union inaugurates the space age with its launch on Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite. The spacecraft was named Sputnik after the Russian word of satellite, launched at about 10:29 p.m. Moscow time. Sputnik had a diameter of 22 inches. It weighed 184 pounds, which is equal to 83.6 kilograms, circled Earth once in every hour, traveling 18,000 miles an hour, visible with binocular before sunrise. Sputnik transmitted radio signals back to the Earth, strong enough to be picked by amateur radio operators. USA tuned in and listened in awe as the spacecraft passed over America several times a day. Now, you have heard the story of the Sputnik, how it was launched. Launched in the space by Soviet Union in 1957. This launch of the satellite brought about the awareness as regards the need to re-examine the school science curriculum, objectives, and evaluation of science curriculum in the world. In Nigeria, a lot of external influences and foreign curricula motivated many curriculum innovations in integrated science at primary and secondary school levels. Some of the foreign curriculum or curricula are Elementary Study of Science (ESS) in 1960, Science a Process Approach (SAPA) in 1962, Science Education for African Projects (SEAP) in 1970, Science Teacher Education Project STEP in 1970. Some of the Nigerian projects with dates that we have is we have University of Nigeria Nsukka Primary Science Pilot Scheme in 1963. Then African Primary Project in 1965. Bende State Primary Science Project in 1966. Ife 6 years for Yoruba Language Project in 1970. The Primary Education Improved Program in 1970. Ondo State Primary Science Project in 1974. And Basic Science and Technology Education Program in 1988. Some of these projects that were inaugurated were as a result of the Sputnik, that is the awareness that science can be improved, and our teaching and the curriculum of science in our schools can be improved. The financials and many materials that were produced are also taken care of. The projects, as I told you, were made by some universities, some organizations, and their dates were given. Then the people that financed the materials and the projects were also stated. Like the University of Nigeria project, University of Nigeria Nsukka project in 1963 was financed by Faculty of Education, University of Nigeria Nsukka, and Ford Foundation of America. The materials they produced that time was the idea they gave was to improvise using local materials. Their own emphasis was that there must be improvisation of materials using local materials in the environment. Then the APSP that was launched in 1965 was financed by USAID, Ford Foundation, and Education Development Center. And their own the purpose of their own launching of that project was in the spirit of inquiry, creativity skill in children, and to produce textbooks and teachers guides. They want to make teaching the curriculum that they have produced, so that to be child center, to make students have the spirit of inquiry. We have BPSP in 1966. It was also financed by State Ministry of Education, UNESCO, UNICEF, and UNDC. This one is to train teachers and create spirit of inquiry in the children, and produce textbooks and teachers guide to make sure that teaching is adequately done. We have other materials too that were financed by other organizations, which you will see later in other documents. Now, you have heard how the whole world had awareness of changing our curriculum to make sure that teaching of science is child-centered. That is, you make it activity-based so that students can enjoy the science teaching and learning. Now, I want to put it to you as one of your activities. What are the common phenomena in all the primary science projects we have mentioned? I'm sure you must have answered that, and the common phenomenon there is that most of the projects were made to be student, child, or pupils centered. That is, the spirit of inquiry for the student to be able to learn. The secondary school projects too were also developed And the main one that was the first that was developed in Nigeria was the Basic Science for Nigerian Secondary School (BSNSS) between 1963 and 1967. The Nigeria Integrated Science Project (NIPS), the popular one, in 1970. The Nigerian Secondary School Science Project (NSSSP), the National Science Curriculum for Secondary School (NSCSS) was also developed. Then some of these secondary school projects were also financed, and some of the purpose and the materials for which they were developed were also mentioned. The BSNSS, which was the first to be produced for the secondary school students, was in 1963. It was financed by Ford Foundation of America, the Western Nigerian Region government, and the purpose is to make learning and teaching to be child-centered. That is, they produce syllabus that is child-centered. They advocated for laboratory activities and production of textbooks and teachers' guide. Then the NIPS, which is popular, and that one was developed by Science Teacher Association of Nigeria with the help and the initiation of a West African Examination Council that time. They produced textbooks, teachers' guide, and their own aim too is to make learning of science to be child-centered. And they do science like a scientist. They want students to do science like a scientist. There are so many others too, like we have mentioned, and these are we have NSSSP in 1970, and we have NSCSS in 1970. Now, in this unit, you have learnt that external or foreign influences motivated many of the curriculum innovations in science at the basic science education program in primary and junior secondary school levels. Basic Science for Nigerian Secondary Schools was the first science curriculum project undertaken in Nigeria. Nigeria Integrated Science Project (NIPS) was the first science curriculum project developed by STAN in 1970. Nigerian Science Curriculum for Secondary Schools came as a result of the new education policy, a 6334 system of education in Nigeria. These are some of the things you need to know about how the curriculum innovations and reforms started after independence. For your assignment, I would like you to outline the topics in the STAN, which is the NIPS book, and describe the arrangement of the units. These are your references, that is, some of the books you'll be required to read so that you can add more to whatever has been given to you in your course materials. And with this, we have come to the end of this lesson for today. Thank you for listening.